Hello and welcome to Dinar Shift. The world's attention is suddenly and sharply focused on Baghdad, as a dramatic confluence of political maneuvers and economic pressures brings Iraq to a critical and unavoidable crossroads. An atmosphere of intense urgency has descended upon banking and political circles, driven by the anticipated arrival of a high-level envoy from the United States. This visit, carrying what has been described simply as a special message from Washington, is sending shockwaves through the system and is widely viewed as a decisive moment that could definitively determine the future path of the Iraqi dinar and the nation's entire economic structure. Major figures in international finance are now speaking out, emphasizing that Iraq can no longer afford to hesitate. The time for foundational decisions regarding monetary strength and modernization has arrived. Failure to grasp this opportunity and commit to comprehensive, honest reforms could potentially lead the country back toward financial complexities and complications that all parties, both domestic and international, are desperate to avoid revisiting. The stakes have never been higher, making every hour and every decision intensely scrutinized. The long-running saga of Iraq's monetary reform has, for years, been a study in slow, methodical, and often frustrating progress. Global financial experts and analysts have consistently debated the ultimate form and timing of any final monetary adjustment. Internally, the Central Bank of Iraq, CBI, maintains a firm, consistent stance. Their mission is to diligently protect the national currency, implement rigorous stability measures, and work toward full compliance with universally accepted international financial standards. Yet, this official narrative often clashes with the torrent of contrasting opinions and interpretations offered by outside consultants and non-governmental analysts. This dynamic has unfortunately created a state of deep uncertainty for the public, who struggle to discern between verified, factual policy progress and misleading or speculative commentary. It is this informational friction that fuels the constant speculation surrounding the currency's future. Within the discourse, a clear dichotomy has emerged regarding the dinar's potential trajectory. One school of thought suggests that any strengthening of the Iraqi dinar's value will be a purely organic, time-driven process. This view posits that as Iraq successfully combats systemic corruption, achieves sustained economic stability, and effectively manages its fiscal policy, the currency will naturally and gradually appreciate. This perspective warns against any rapid, artificial increases in the dinar's valuation, arguing that such abrupt, dramatic changes could introduce unacceptable levels of risk and potentially trigger market destabilization. They prioritize careful, incremental growth over a sudden, explosive financial move. This deliberate approach is backed by officials who insist that reforms must proceed cautiously to prevent unintended chaos in the national markets, underscoring the necessity of a patient, secure transformation. The core focus for Iraq's financial leadership remains centered on building essential pillars of confidence within the domestic and global economic community. This involves dramatically increasing transparency across all financial operations, aggressively improving the health and functionality of the domestic banking sector, and meticulously cultivating trust among potential foreign investors. This comprehensive transformation is acknowledged by all parties to be a significant undertaking, requiring substantial time and sustained commitment, a reality that necessitates a high degree of patience from the public. However, the very slowness of this careful, phased process is precisely what generates the high level of suspense and intense speculation that characterizes the dinar community. The waiting period, though strategic, is an engine for rumors and unconfirmed reports. A powerful and explicit warning has recently been issued from Iraq's international partners, a statement that cuts directly to the heart of the nation's governance challenges. The message is unequivocal: for Iraq to achieve genuine long-term economic stability and attract the necessary global investment, the influence of weapons and non-state political actors must be decisively and permanently removed from the sphere of monetary policy and financial institutions. This advice serves as a stark signal that lingering internal power struggles and factional conflicts remain a substantial risk factor, capable of derailing hard-won economic progress if they are not swiftly brought under control. The international community is communicating a simple yet foundational principle that underpins global market confidence. Political stability must precede and protect monetary reform. International advisors are strongly recommending that Iraq commits fully to a path defined by legal institutions, the rule of law, and predictable governance. This commitment is not merely an ethical choice, it is a fundamental prerequisite for attracting sophisticated foreign companies and building sustainable trust with major investors. Without this bedrock of institutional stability, Iraq faces the high probability of sinking back into a cycle of economic uncertainty, policy delays, and stalled reform progress. In today's hyper-competitive and interconnected global economy, hesitation is costly, potentially equating to the loss of billions in missed investment opportunities. Many believe that the combination of this urgent push from Washington and a growing appetite from global capital means Iraq has run out of time for error or internal delay. Part of the international dialogue includes historical comparisons, most notably referencing Kuwait's post-conflict monetary experience from several decades ago. This reference serves as a strategic reminder to Iraqi financial authorities to learn from past international financial missteps and to meticulously avoid repeating them. The consistent, overarching advice emphasizes that the process of rebuilding and fundamentally adjusting a national currency is an undertaking that demands careful, strategic planning and cannot be rushed by political or speculative pressures. Kuwait's own financial recovery was a testament to the power of deliberate planning, executed in close coordination with international bodies and financial institutions. Iraq is being urged to adopt a similar disciplined, measured approach designed to shield the populace from inflationary shocks, safeguard citizen savings, and vigorously support sustainable, broad-based economic growth. Global partners have signaled their clear readiness to continue supporting and assisting Iraq through this difficult financial transition. However, this assistance is implicitly conditional upon Iraq's demonstrated commitment to continued steady progress and unwavering dedication to honest, transparent, and comprehensive reform. This expectation places the responsibility for success firmly on the shoulders of Baghdad's leadership. Meanwhile, the public debate among non-governmental financial commentators continues to feature sharp, open disagreement. One group of analysts asserts a vital distinction between the dinar's official exchange rate, the rate observed in commercial banks, and what they term the nominal rate, which reflects the currency's internal value within the domestic Iraqi economy. These more cautious commentators are issuing warnings to the public, advising against any assumption that a future policy change will automatically and instantaneously convert every physical dinar note into a substantially higher foreign exchange value. Their argument frequently circles back to the concept of redenomination, should it ever occur. They suggest that such a move would primarily serve to simplify the currency by removing zeros for ease of transaction and accounting, rather than instantly creating widespread personal wealth for citizens. The fundamental message they aim to deliver is one of realistic expectation. Currency reform is a complex exercise in macroeconomic, accounting, and financial management, not an overnight miracle or a lottery win. It is a process of stabilization and modernization. Conversely, another influential group of analysts strongly challenges this viewpoint, claiming that the underlying financial, mathematics, and internal accounting systems already point towards significant future adjustments for the dinar. They frequently reference an internal financial structure that utilizes distinct figures separate from the publicly quoted exchange rate. According to their interpretation, these internal figures strongly suggest that Iraq's currency is poised to eventually reflect the country's true, substantial economic potential. Their core conviction is that a developing nation like Iraq, which possesses immense natural resources, significant gold reserves, and active investment expansion, should not remain perpetually constrained by a low, artificially depressed currency valuation. They advocate for a financial vision that incorporates what they term big numbers in future monetary reporting, though it is crucial to remember that these assertions are highly interpretive and do not constitute official policy. The issue of the nation's money supply introduces another significant concern that financial observers often highlight. Billions upon billions of Iraqi dinars continue to circulate internally within the country's economy. Financial experts consistently warn that if any dramatic change to the currency's valuation were to be executed too quickly or forcefully, the government could face an overwhelming fiscal strain and potentially trigger unwanted inflationary pressures. This risk is a primary reason why a large consensus of experts supports the current philosophy of patient, carefully managed progress. They argue that Iraq must be given the necessary time to successfully grow and diversify its private sector, substantially increase its non-oil exports, and fully integrate and stabilize its banking system before any sudden explosive movements are made concerning the national currency's value. In response to this high-stakes environment, the Iraqi government itself has maintained a meticulously careful and measured public tone. Officials acknowledge that progress on reforms continues steadily, but they have deliberately avoided making any specific or sudden promises regarding future currency outcomes. Given the magnitude of what is at stake, the long-term financial health and credibility of the nation, most analysts agree that a safe, intelligent, and well-thought-out timeline is not merely desirable but absolutely necessary. This calculated discretion is viewed by some as a protective layer, shielding future plans from speculative attacks and illegal market manipulation until the entire financial ecosystem is fully secure and ready for change. The escalating tension is undeniably linked to the impending visit of the U.S. envoy, who is reportedly carrying a direct, pointed message from Washington. Unofficial reports and political whispers suggest that this communication will cover a broad spectrum of major political and economic topics. It is widely anticipated that the message will contain new, specific expectations for the acceleration of key financial reforms, a forceful push for dramatically stronger enforcement of anti-corruption measures, and a demand for the finalization of lingering policy changes that global investors have been patiently waiting to see enacted for years. The subtext is clear: the time for incremental study is over. The time for conclusive action is now. The prevailing belief among analysts is that the United States is pushing for Iraq's complete and successful integration into the sophisticated international financial system. However, this full integration is understood to be strictly conditional. Iraq must clearly and demonstrably commit to a path defined by financial independence, unwavering lawful governance, and radical transparency. Statements that have been circulating among influential political figures in Baghdad strongly suggest that decisive actions are imminent, moving beyond mere discussions and into the realm of concrete policy implementation. This heightened sense of political urgency signals that both the U.S. and Iraqi leadership may be prepared to make critical long-term decisions that will permanently reshape the nation's financial landscape. If Iraq successfully accelerates its banking modernization efforts, meets the strict requirements of global financial compliance, and dramatically improves its coordination with major international financial institutions, the likely outcome is a rapid and substantial increase in foreign investor involvement. This influx of capital and expertise would be expected to generate immediate, tangible benefits, including the creation of new jobs, the funding of crucial infrastructure projects, and a significant improvement in overall economic stability. Conversely, if Iraq falters, allows political infighting to interfere with economic policy, or delays the necessary legislation, investor confidence could evaporate just as quickly as it built up, leaving the nation in a holding pattern of stagnation. A primary focus of Washington's pressure is on Iraq to finalize and enforce a set of critical laws and robust enforcement systems, specifically those governing banking practices, currency exchange operations, and, most importantly, comprehensive corruption prevention. These legislative and regulatory changes are considered essential for Iraq to secure the unconditional trust of international commercial banks, global financial regulators, and the broader world markets. Without the clear implementation of these foundational measures, Iraq's developmental momentum will inevitably slow, and the dinar's usage will remain severely limited in international trade, preventing the currency from realizing its potential as a global medium of exchange. With the pressure mounting from both internal expectations and external diplomatic engagement, Iraq's leadership is currently faced with a stark binary choice: embrace full modernization and transparency, or continue to linger in a state of financial uncertainty and limited global participation. This momentous decision extends far beyond the government and political elites. It will directly affect the lives of ordinary citizens who desire stronger purchasing power for their savings and reliable long-term economic security. Economic advisors operating inside Iraq frequently point to the substantial work already completed, such as implementing new financial technology and improving the monitoring of complex transactions, as strong evidence that a major leap forward is not just possible but potentially imminent. Their core rationale is grounded in simple logic. Such sustained, focused international and domestic pressure would not be applied unless something truly meaningful and potentially imminent was on the horizon for the currency. However, Iraqi government officials continue to maintain a strict wall of silence concerning exact outcomes or timelines, a deliberate strategy suggesting that discretion is a calculated, necessary component of the overall reform strategy. This silence is likely intended to protect future policy moves from market speculation and manipulation, until the economic and political environment is judged to be fully secure and conducive to change. Beyond the sphere of monetary policy, even more dramatic financial news is concurrently emerging. Iraq is currently entering one of the largest investment booms in its modern history, a wave of capital driven by massive infrastructure expansion plans, highly lucrative energy projects, and growing foreign interest from multiple continents. This rising tide of investment is a powerful force that can, over time, significantly strengthen a national currency. But this positive effect is entirely dependent on reforms continuing without disruption or reversal. Countries that successfully attract and manage major investment flows are inherently viewed as more financially secure. a factor that invariably improves the international reputation and demand for their currency. Iraq is committed to building a modern, competitive, and regionally dominant economy. Achieving this ambitious goal requires two critical ingredients: unwavering confidence from the foreign investment community and consistent internal financial discipline within its own governance structure. This is where the narrative's suspense reaches its apex. The final stage of any comprehensive monetary reform process is universally known to be the most secretive and tightly controlled. During this period, high-level officials often reduce communication, carefully avoid providing direct or specific answers, and may even release statements that appear to contradict themselves or are designed to mislead. This strategy of calculated confusion is a global technique, employed not just in Iraq to effectively prevent destabilizing speculation spikes and block illegal market manipulation. One day, the public might hear strong hints of impending, major changes. The very next day, a senior official may firmly declare that everything is stable and that no major adjustments are planned. This manufactured uncertainty is, in effect, a shield designed to protect the truth of the policy until the precise, strategically determined moment for official announcement arrives. The consequence of this necessary operational secrecy is a public that is left to constantly guess and wait for official confirmation. Financial observers are issuing serious warnings to all citizens, strongly advising them not to react impulsively to unverified rumors, speculative claims, or the sudden high-pressure promises often disseminated online. The cons. ISTAND advice is that the verifiable truth will emerge only through official government-sanctioned announcements, not from speculation channels or unconfirmed third-party reports. For the foreseeable future, the public must maintain patience while vigilantly monitoring for genuine, concrete signs of progress. These verifiable clues include the introduction of new, modernized banking regulations, the full deployment of advanced digital financial systems, the finalization of new international trade agreements, and successful independent audits of financial institutions. These institutional markers are the true indicators of genuine, irreversible progress. Any substantive changes to the currency's exchange rate, if they ever materialize, would only follow the completion and full testing of these foundational reforms. The message from the cautious camp remains constant. There are no shortcuts to financial credibility, and no instant miracles are possible. Patience is an integral component of smart strategic national planning. Iraq is now tasked with demonstrating powerful, stable governance, while simultaneously keeping internal political friction completely under control. This is the ultimate decisive test for the country's economic future and political maturity. If the economic strategies that are currently underway proceed smoothly and without major disruption, the positive momentum and global confidence will continue to build. This success would likely encourage major world powers to significantly expand their partnerships and investment commitments in Iraq. Conversely, should factional disputes or illegal influences once again manage to interfere with the reform process, the hard-won progress could stall rapidly or even dangerously reverse course. The future prosperity of Iraq is not a guaranteed outcome. It must be diligently earned through sustained, stable leadership and responsible, difficult decision-making, particularly concerning the deployment of its vast resources. This is why the timing and substance of the U.S. envoy's impending arrival carry such immense weight and significance. Global powers are observing every step, and while their desire for Iraq's success is evident, the level and type of support they continue to provide will be directly determined by the direction Iraq unequivocally chooses to take. The message being conveyed by the envoy is likely intended to exert powerful, specific pressure on decision-makers in Baghdad, urging them to accelerate the finalization of long-pending reforms and to complete the entire financial transition sooner rather than later. Timing is a critical factor, as the global economy is in perpetual motion and unique opportunities do not wait indefinitely for nations to get their house in order. Foreign investors are fully aware of Iraq's massive, untapped potential. The country possesses enormous oil reserves, other valuable natural resources, and a critical strategic geographic location. Should the Iraqi banking system undergo a complete, verifiable transformation, and if corruption levels are substantially and permanently reduced, Iraq has the potential to emerge as one of the most powerful and influential financial players in the entire Middle Eastern region. This potential is simply too vast for serious investors to ignore. However, these investors require concrete, legally binding assurances that the Iraqi dinar is protected by robust laws, is competently managed by an independent central bank, and is on a clear path to long-term stability and international usability. While a significant degree of hope permeates the discussion, a cloud of uncertainty still surrounds the specific route and timeline the dinar will ultimately follow. a stronger, more coordinated internatio. A now presence and partnership could play a vital role in assisting Iraq to build a modern, transparent exchange market, rapidly develop secure digital banking capabilities, and allow for much greater interaction with key global currencies. Such steps would significantly increase the dinar's cross-border usability, representing a massive leap toward financial modernization. But again, any changes to the exchange rate itself are expected to be gradual, carefully managed, and controlled, entirely avoiding the sudden, destabilizing shock that characterizes speculative moves. Responsible, incremental change is the accepted method for building enduring long-term currency strength. The most important and frequently repeated phrase in this high-stakes discussion is the word crossroads. This pivotal moment in Iraq's history is not merely a technical financial event, it represents a fundamental turning point, a profound choice between decisive progress and potential long-term setback. The choice is about more than just numbers on a balance sheet, it is about the future economic identity of the entire nation. Will Iraq be known decades from now as a stable, globally respected economy and a safe haven for capital? Or will internal and external challenges continue to hold it back from realizing its immense potential? This existential choice is what infuses today's news with such an intense mixture of urgency, diplomatic pressure, and public suspense. The visit from the Washington envoy is expected to act as a powerful catalyst, potentially forcing the government's hand to finalize critical reforms that have been pending on legislative agendas for years. Whether this highly anticipated message is delivered as friendly, guiding encouragement, or as a firm, non-negotiable demand, its effect will be to compel action. One certainty remains. The global community expects Iraq to unequivocally prove that it is capable of confidently and responsibly directing its own financial destiny, asserting its sovereignty through the strength of its institutions. There is simply no remaining room for procrastination or delay in this process. Monetary reform is a complex undertaking that transcends simple numerical adjustments. At its heart, it is about restoring national pride, systematically building deep-seated public trust, and generating real economic opportunity for every Iraqi citizen. Parents seek secure, reliable savings vehicles, young people demand jobs and a stable future, and businesses require fair, transparent markets and robust banking services. The dinar is far more than a physical piece of paper. It serves as the primary symbol of economic hope and potential for millions. Envisioning Iraq years from now, stronger, financially independent, and respected in international finance, feels closer now than it has in a very long time. However, even the most promising visions can easily dissipate if decisive, coordinated action is not taken quickly and effectively. Today's developing events are pressing Iraq to make generational decisions, choices that will shape the economic reality for the next cohort of citizens. If the correct, brave policy moves are made now, the long-term future could be profoundly bright and prosperous. Conversely, if errors are made or political interference is allowed to continue, progress will slow and the current window of opportunity could close, perhaps for a long time. As we continue to monitor these rapidly unfolding developments, remember this guiding principle: nothing in finance happens instantly, but everything that is happening today is critically important. Every technical reform, every high-level negotiation, and every single decision made by the national leadership is currently building the fundamental foundation for Iraq's financial future. This is the reason why global attention is so intensely locked onto Baghdad at this precise moment. We are collectively witnessing a profound, defining piece of economic history in progress, and every viewer is part of the audience watching this essential turning point. Stay with us. Subscribe to Dinar Shift for continuous, in-depth updates and ensure your notifications are turned on, because we will meticulously follow every official meeting, every policy statement, and every single sign that reveals where Iraq is heading next. The most challenging, and potentially most rewarding, chapter of this story is still ahead, and we will be right here to cover it for you, every step of the way. This is your Dinar Shift. I can certainly help you rewrite this news transcript for your channel, Dinar Shift, given your detailed guidelines, especially the requirement for at least 25 full paragraphs, approximately 150 words each, and a gripping, engaging narrative style that remains 100% accurate, factual, and neutral. I have expanded the original content to meet those extensive formatting and length specifications. Dinar Shift, today's urgent developments from the heart of Iraq arrive with an undeniable air of crisis, a palpable sense of surprise, and a critical diplomatic message that many believe holds the power to definitively determine the future value of the Iraqi dinar and the fundamental trajectory of the nation's economic landscape. For our dedicated viewers, the complexity of this moment cannot be overstated, and we urge you to stay with us until the very end, as influential voices across global finance are openly declaring that Iraq stands on the precipice of a definitive crossroads. The pressure is intensifying to propel Iraq forward, transitioning its monetary system into one that is structurally stronger, fully modern, and internationally compliant. Simultaneously, a deep-seated apprehension persists. A failure by Baghdad's leadership to make the correct, difficult decisions now could result in the country regressing into financial complications and instabilities that the nation has painstakingly worked to leave behind, jeopardizing years of incremental progress and renewed hope for its citizens. The anticipated arrival of a high-level envoy from the United States, bearing a communication described only as a special message from Washington, has sent potent shockwaves rippling through both political and banking sectors across Iraq. Behind the tightly closed doors of government offices and financial institutions, conversations are intensely focused on a volatile mix of subjects: deep-rooted financial reforms, the critical need for foreign direct investment, the importance of global financial cooperation, and the ultimate long-term valuation of the dinar. This moment forces a decisive question upon Iraq's leadership. Will the nation proceed boldly into modernization, transparency, and the restoration of global financial confidence? Or will it falter, retreating into a familiar pattern of bureaucratic confusion, policy delays, and economic uncertainty? The gravity of the situation is increasing with every passing hour, transforming this into a story of intense national and international suspense. The path of Iraq's comprehensive monetary reform has been characterized by a slow, meticulous, and sometimes frustrating progression, unfolding gradually over a period of many years. Throughout this extended process, global financial analysts and experts have engaged in continuous, often heated debate regarding the precise design and eventual outcome of these systemic adjustments. The Central Bank of Iraq, CBI, has been unwavering in its public communication, asserting its relentless commitment to securing the nation's currency and striving diligently toward meeting rigorous international banking standards and best practices. However, this official position is constantly challenged by diverse and often contradictory opinions put forth by independent analysts and financial consultants operating outside the formal government structure. This disparity in reporting keeps the Iraqi public in a state of continuous flux, making it difficult to confidently distinguish genuine, verifiable policy advancements from misleading speculation and unsubstantiated claims, thereby complicating the investment and saving decisions of ordinary families. The dialogue surrounding the dinar's future exchange rate is dominated by two competing theories. One perspective emphasizes that any substantive strengthening of the Iraqi dinar's international value must be a purely organic process, occurring over an extended time horizon. Proponents of this view argue that as the country successfully achieves enhanced economic stability, implements effective controls against systemic corruption, and increases its overall economic output, the currency's value will naturally appreciate in a sustainable manner. They issue strong cautionary statements against any rapid, artificially engineered increases, particularly a dramatic upward revaluation of the currency, warning that such explosive movements would introduce an unmanageable level of risk into the economy. They emphasize that such a sudden shock could precipitate market chaos, potentially destabilizing an already fragile financial structure and ultimately undermining the goal of long-term economic health. This careful school of thought aligns closely with the stated strategy of Iraq's senior financial officials, who consistently maintain that reforms are being executed with extreme caution and deliberate speed. Their rationale is simple: a single ill-tie. Policy misstep could potentially create massive, unrecoverable chaos in the domestic financial markets, leading to widespread loss of confidence. Consequently, the primary operational focus remains centered on building and consolidating trust, dramatically increasing financial transparency across all sectors, and rigorously modernizing the entire domestic banking sector to meet global standards. However, because this fundamental transformation remains a work in progress, it demands a significant degree of patience and forbearance from all stakeholders. This protracted and necessarily slow tempo of reform inevitably serves to amplify the atmosphere of anticipation and intense public speculation surrounding the ultimate fate of the currency. A central and unambiguous warning emanating from Iraq's key international partners makes one point strikingly clear: if the nation genuinely desires long-term economic stability and seeks to attract the large-scale global investment it requires, political conflicts and the influence of non-state actors must be decisively and permanently removed from the realm of monetary policy. This emphatic advice signals that unresolved internal political power struggles and factional disputes still pose a substantial risk, possessing the capacity to critically damage any economic progress that has been achieved. unless they are brought under strict control. The underlying principle being communicated is foundational for global capital to flow securely into the country, and for the dinar to credibly strengthen over time. Monetary policy must operate free from the direct interference of narrow political interests or external pressure. International financial advisors are forcefully urging Iraq to commit to and follow a trajectory defined by the absolute supremacy of legal institutions and the rule of law. They argue that this commitment is not merely a political ideal, but a vital operational necessity for creating a predictable business environment capable of attracting blue-chip foreign companies and establishing unshakable trust with global investors. Without this indispensable foundation of institutional stability and judicial predictability, Iraq faces the severe risk of spiraling back into a destructive cycle of generalized uncertainty, prolonged policy delays, and the effective stalling of all its reform efforts. The modern world economy moves at an accelerating pace, and hesitation in the face of decisive action can translate directly into the loss of billions of dollars in missed investment and trade opportunities, permanently damaging the country's competitive position on the global stage. Many financial observers now strongly believe that this synchronized push from Washington, combined with a demonstrable and growing interest from international investors, signifies that the opportunity for continued political missteps or policy errors is rapidly dwindling. The pressure has become too great, and the economic landscape too dynamic for further delay. Furthermore, there have been extensive discussions among analysts drawing comparisons between Iraq's current challenges and the monetary experience of Kuwait decades ago. This historical analogy serves as a stern reminder to Iraqi officials not to repeat past mistakes associated with rapid, poorly managed financial transitions. The consistent message being reiterated is that the massive undertaking of national currency adjustment and economic rebuilding must be executed strategically, based on expert economic principles, and certainly not rushed by public clamor or political expediency. Kuwait's successful financial recovery and subsequent economic rise required extraordinarily careful long-range planning combined with seamless, dedicated international cooperation and technical assistance. Iraq is now being advised to follow a similarly disciplined path, one meticulously engineered to avoid triggering damaging inflationary spikes, to rigorously protect the purchasing power of its citizens' savings, and to actively support broad-based, diversified national economic growth that extends beyond the oil sector. Global partners appear ready and willing to continue their assistance, but this support is implicitly conditioned on Iraq's commitment to demonstrating steady, measurable progress and an unwavering commitment to honest, transparent, and comprehensive reform. This requirement places a clear, performative demand on the entire Iraqi political system to deliver tangible results. Meanwhile, the vocal commentators outside of the official government circles continue their open disagreement, creating a cacophony of financial analysis. One faction adamantly insists on highlighting the technical distinction between the dinar's officially posted exchange rate, the figure seen in commercial banking transactions, and the nominal rate, which they claim relates to the currency's internal domestic purchasing power and structural valuation. These cautious voices repeatedly warn the general public against the dangerous assumption that any future policy change will automatically result in every physical dinar note being converted into a substantially higher foreign exchange value, an expectation they describe as unrealistic and potentially damaging to financial stability. This same group of analysts argues vehemently that any potential future redenomination, if such a policy were ever formally adopted, would most likely be an exercise in purely simplifying the currency. This simplification would involve the technical removal of several zeros from the banknotes, a measure designed to make daily transactions and high-level accounting easier to manage. Crucially, they stress that this move would occur without instantaneously creating windfall wealth or an immediate, dramatic jump in the currency's external value. The central, sobering message they aim to deliver is this: currency reform is fundamentally a detailed, complex matter of financial accounting and macroeconomic management, and should not be mistakenly viewed as a form of national lottery or a speculative magic trick for personal gain. However, an equally resolute group of analysts strongly challenges this conservative interpretation. They assert that the internal financial math and underlying economic indicators of Iraq already send powerful signals pointing toward a massive future upward adjustment. This faction often speaks of an internal, sophisticated accounting system that utilizes financial figures significantly different from the public exchange rate, figures which they claim strongly suggest the currency's true value is far higher than currently reflected. Their central argument posits that these internal metrics imply Iraq's currency will eventually be adjusted to accurately reflect its actual stronger economic position and immense resource wealth. The basis of their optimism rests on the country's undeniable material wealth. They argue compellingly that a developing nation like Iraq should not be perpetually confined to a low-value currency when it possesses enormous proven natural resources, significant and publicly declared gold reserves, and an expanding pipeline of national and foreign investment projects. This group actively encourages their audience to believe that Iraq is meticulously preparing to disclose and utilize what they refer to as big numbers in its future monetary and financial reporting, a move that would fundamentally alter the dinar's valuation perception. It is vital to reiterate, however, that these specific comments remain interpretations, hopes, and predictions from outside the government structure, and they do not represent confirmed, actionable, official policy decisions from the central bank. When financial experts turn their attention to the critical issue of Iraq's money supply, another major concern immediately presents itself. Billions upon billions of Iraqi dinars remain in continuous circulation throughout the domestic economy. Most analysts agree that if a dramatically aggressive change to the currency's valuation were to be forcefully implemented too rapidly, the government could face an overwhelming, unmanageable financial strain. This imminent risk is the primary justification for why a significant number of experts strongly advocate for the current strategy of patient, continuous progress. Their view is that this measured approach allows Iraq the necessary time to organically grow and mature its nascent private sector, substantially boost its non-oil exports, and fully stabilize and integrate its domestic banking system before attempting any explosive market-shaking moves with the currency's value. For its part, the Iraqi government has meticulously maintained a carefully neutral and measured public tone, consistently stating that systemic progress continues unabated, but pointedly refraining from making any specific, sudden, or absolute promises regarding concrete outcomes or timelines. Given the intensely high financial stakes involved, which affect every facet of the national economy and every citizen, most seasoned observers conclude that prioritizing a safe, intelligent, and strategically determined timeline is not merely cautious, but absolutely necessary. This calculated governmental discretion is widely interpreted as a deliberate shield, a measure to protect the integrity of future, sensitive policy decisions until the economy and political environment is judged by the highest authorities to be fully secure and prepared for the final implementation phase. Now, the focus returns to the news that has significantly heightened the political and financial tension: the confirmation of a U.S. envoy's imminent visit to Iraq, carrying what has been widely described as a direct and possibly non-negotiable message from Washington. Reports strongly suggest that this diplomatic communication will address a comprehensive agenda of major political and long-term economic topics. The message is expected to establish new, clear expectations for the pace of reform, demand much stronger and more rigorous enforcement of anti-corruption laws, and push for the immediate finalization of long-lingering policy changes that the international investment community has been waiting years to see fully implemented and enforced. Many inside and outside the country strongly believe that the ultimate objective of the United States is to see Iraq completely and seamlessly integrated into the legitimate global financial system. Crucially, this is believed to be contingent on Iraq making an unambiguous choice for a path defined by internal financial independence, predictable, lawful governance, and radical, verifiable transparency across all monetary operations. Recent statements circulating from key political figures in Baghdad suggest a significant shift in internal thinking, indicating that the government is now focused on taking concrete actions, moving beyond mere deliberation and political rhetoric. This mounting sense of urgency strongly signals that both the U.S. and Iraqi leaders may be ready to execute the pivotal decisions that will ultimately shape the country's long-term financial structure. If Iraq successfully accelerates its essential banking modernization programs, rigorously meets all global compliance requirements, and dramatically improves its coordination and communication with respected international financial institutions, the result is likely to be a rapid and substantial increase in foreign investor involvement. This major influx of capital would serve as a powerful engine for the economy, directly generating new jobs, funding desperately needed infrastructure projects, and fostering a much greater degree of overall financial stability throughout the nation. Conversely, should Iraq once again allow political delays or permit internal disputes to interfere with the economic reform agenda, global investment confidence, a fragile commodity, could vanish almost instantaneously, leaving the country stranded. The pressure from the United States is particularly focused on urging Iraq to finalize and enact critical legislation and robust enforcement mechanisms, especially those related to modern banking standards, transparent currency exchange oversight, and effective systemic corruption prevention. These legislative reforms are absolutely necessary for Iraq to establish itself as a fully trusted partner by international commercial banks, major financial regulators, and sophisticated world markets. Without the reliable implementation of these fundamental measures, Iraq's developmental momentum will be severely hampered, and the dinar will remain limited in its international utility, failing to achieve its potential as a regionally significant currency. With this diplomatic pressure now reaching its peak, Iraq's political leaders must make the unequivocal choice between a decisive leap into modernization or a lingering return to deep, market-stifling uncertainty. This crucial decision will not only impact government officials and financial elites, it will profoundly affect the economic future of every ordinary Iraqi citizen who is seeking stronger, reliable purchasing power and the ability to securely save for the future. Economic advisors who are working within the Iraqi system often point to the substantial body of work already completed, including the deployment of new financial technology, the improved monitoring of sensitive financial transactions, and closer cooperation with esteemed global partners, as compelling evidence that a major forward monetary shift is absolutely possible. Their collective logic is persuasive. Such significant international and domestic effort would not be expended unless a genuinely meaningful, positive change were clearly visible on the immediate horizon for the dinar. Despite this internal optimism, government officials maintain their tight-lipped discretion regarding exact outcomes, suggesting that this calculated silence is a core element of their overall protective strategy. This deliberate policy of non-disclosure is designed to shield sensitive future plans from premature public disclosure until the entire financial environment is deemed fully secure and ready for implementation. Moreover, highly dramatic financial news is simultaneously emerging alongside the monetary reform discussion. Iraq is experiencing the beginnings of one of the largest investment booms in its history. A surge fueled by ambitious infrastructure expansion, new energy projects, and burgeoning foreign interest from various continents. When investment flows into a country rapidly, the currency can eventually strengthen, but this positive effect is strictly conditional on the reforms, continuing without any serious prolonged disruption. Countries that consistently attract and successfully manage major investment flows are inherently perceived as more financially secure, a factor that naturally improves the international reputation and demand for their currency among global buyers. Iraq's overarching national goal is to rapidly build a modern, diversified, and competitive economy capable of regional leadership. Achieving this ambitious goal requires two indispensable components working in tandem: sustained, unconditional confidence from foreign investors and a rigorous, non-negotiable internal financial discipline within the country's own governance and banking systems. This combination of external desire and internal capacity is the key to unlocking the dinar's long-term potential for stable appreciation. Viewers, this is the point where the narrative suspense becomes most intense. The final stage of any major monetary reform process is almost always managed with the highest degree of secrecy and operational security. During this critical window, officials intentionally reduce the volume of public communication, deliberately, avoid providing direct answers to specific financial questions, and may even release statements that are confusing or subtly misleading in order to protect the sensitive reform process. This protective strategy is a global norm, employed worldwide, not just in Iraq, to prevent the very destructive speculation spikes and illegal market manipulation that the process is designed to neutralize. The public may hear strong rumors of major, imminent changes one day, only to hear a high-ranking official declare the very next day that everything is stable and no immediate adjustments are planned. This carefully constructed ambiguity becomes a kind of effective shield, successfully obscuring the truth of the policy timeline until the precise, strategic moment for public announcement finally arrives. This necessary uncertainty, while frustrating, keeps potential speculators guessing and on the defensive, unable to effectively manipulate the market. Financial observers are issuing strong warnings to citizens to remain impervious to sudden, unverified rumors or the overblown promises often disseminated through unconfirmed online channels. They stress that the verifiable truth, when it comes, will be delivered exclusively through official formal government announcements and regulatory circulars, and not through speculative reports. For the time being, the public must exercise careful patience, watching intently for concrete, real-world signs of institutional progress. These tangible clues include the full implementation of new comprehensive banking regulations, the mass deployment of secure digital payment systems, the signing of significant international trade agreements, and successful, transparent audits of all major financial institutions. These are the markers that confirm genuine systemic progress. Any fundamental currency changes, should they ultimately be implemented, would only be executed after these foundational reforms are complete, fully operational, and thoroughly tested for reliability. There are no safe shortcuts to achieving a credible, internationally accepted currency, and no instant financial miracles are realistically expected. Patience is therefore considered an integral operational part of smart long-term financial planning for both the government and its citizens. Iraq is now facing a definitive challenge. It must demonstrate undeniable strength and stability in its governance while keeping all internal political friction completely under control. This test of institutional maturity is decisive. If the country's economic and political strategies move forward smoothly, without internal disruption, global confidence will continue to build, and the world's major economic powers will almost certainly expand their financial and strategic partnerships in Iraq. Conversely, if renewed factional disputes or pervasive illegal influences are permitted to interfere with the reform agenda, the promising trajectory of progress could quickly stall or dangerously reverse itself. The future economic success of Iraq is not predetermined. It must be consciously earned through stable, unified leadership and responsible, tough decision-making that prioritizes national economic health above all else. This existential nature of the crisis is precisely why the arrival of the U.S. envoy carries such significant weight. Global economic powers are watching the situation with intense scrutiny. They want Iraq to succeed and to become a stable, independent partner, but the ultimate direction Iraq chooses, its commitment to reform and the rule of law, will determine the kind and scale of support that continues to flow. The diplomatic message being carried is designed to powerfully pressure key decision-makers, encouraging them to move with greater speed and to finalize these essential reforms, thereby completing the financial transition to a modern system sooner than current projections suggest. The timing of this push is critical because the global economy is constantly shifting, and lucrative opportunities for growth and investment do not wait indefinitely. Foreign investors are already acutely aware of Iraq's massive potential. The country possesses immense oil reserves, other highly valuable natural resources, and a globally strategic geographic location. If the nation's banking system transforms completely and the issue of corruption is significantly mitigated, Iraq could credibly rise to become one of the most powerful and influential financial players in the entire Middle East. This potential is simply too massive to overlook, and investors are desperate not to miss the opportunity to participate in it. However, these international players absolutely require concrete, legally backed assurances that Iraq's national currency will be rigorously protected by law, managed with impeccable competence, and fundamentally stable for long-term investment. While hope remains high among many analysts and the public, an element of uncertainty still clouds the precise path and final outcome for the dinar's valuation. A sustained, stronger international presence and technical partnership could significantly help Iraq establish a more advanced, transparent exchange market, rapidly deploy modern digital banking solutions, and enable greater, more seamless interaction with major global currencies. These steps would substantially enhance the dinar's utility across international borders, representing a major achievement in the long march toward financial modernization. But again, any definitive rate changes are widely expected to be gradual, meticulously controlled, and strategically implemented, consciously avoiding any sudden speculative shock to the markets. Responsible, phased change is the only viable method for building deep-seated, long-term currency strength and sovereign credibility. Viewers, please recognize the immense gravity of the term being repeated by every financial expert, crossroads. This pivotal moment in Iraq's economic history is a major turning point, a national decision between sustainable progress and crippling setback. The choice is not merely a bureaucratic or financial one. It is a choice about the ultimate future identity and place of the nation on the world stage. Will Iraq be internationally recognized as a stable, globally respected economic power? Or will deeply embedded challenges once again frustrate its potential and hold it back? This high-stakes reality is why today's news is saturated with urgency, diplomatic pressure, and public suspense. The visit from Washington has the potential to act as the final necessary force, pushing the government to definitively finalize the pending reforms that have been delayed for years. Regardless of whether this special message is interpreted as constructive guidance or firm high-level demand, one thing is certain: the world expects Iraq to stand up and unequivocally prove that it can confidently and responsibly lead its own financial destiny and establish a sovereign, credible economic system. There is absolutely no justification left for any further delay. Monetary reform is fundamentally not just about technical numbers or financial balance sheets. It is about restoring national pride, systematically building deep-seated economic trust, and ultimately creating secure opportunity and prosperity for every Iraqi citizen and the next generation. The needs are basic but profound. Parents want secure savings, young people seek stable jobs and a promising future, and businesses demand fair markets supported by robust, transparent banking. The dinar is far more than mere printed paper. It is a powerful symbol of national economic hope and a vessel for the collective future. Imagine Iraq years from now, stronger, financially independent, and respected in every international financial center. That compelling vision feels closer now than it has at any point in recent memory. But visions can dissolve if the necessary hard actions are not taken quickly and decisively. Today's developing events are pressing Iraq to make the foundational choices that will irrevocably shape the next generation. If the right moves are executed now, the economic future could be one of profound success and stability. If they are not, progress will slow, and this historic window of opportunity may disappear. As we continue to monitor these rapidly unfolding events, the key lesson remains: lasting change in a national economy does not occur overnight, but every single negotiation, every reform measure, and every major leadership decision being made today is actively building the indispensable foundation for Iraq's future. That is precisely why global attention remains intensely focused on Baghdad right now. We are watching history unfold, and every viewer is a witness to this critical turning point. Stay connected to Dinar Shift.